Well, joining me now is 2024 Republican presidential candidate and former U.S. ambassador to the United Nations, Nikki Haley. Nikki, we appreciate you being here. Great to see you.
Thanks so much, Kilmany. Thanks for having me on.
Talk to me a little bit about, we know you're running to win, but polls suggest that you're behind two of the potential front runners. Talk to me about what your path to the nomination is, and are you aiming to do well in Iowa and New Hampshire? Are you telling your supporters right now that you're going to win them both?
You know, we're telling our supporters that this is a marathon, not a sprint. And this is not about who the media wants to be the two front runners. This is about working and touching every hand, making sure we do tons of town halls. We answer every question. We stay until the last person's left. We've done over 25 events here in Iowa. We've done almost 30 events in New Hampshire. There are no shortcuts. You can't come here, do a rally, and leave. You've got to go and earn the support of every single person. And that's what we're going to do. And look, I'm the only one that's been a two-term governor that's taken a double-digit unemployment state and turned it into an economic powerhouse. I was at the UN. I didn't deal with one country. I dealt with 193. And right now we need experience on the domestic policy executive side as well as the foreign policy side. And we've got a country to save. And I don't trust anybody else to do it. So we're going to make sure we do all the hard work. We're going to put in the time and put in the effort. And we're going to finish at the end of the day.
This is an event that is important for you to be at and other GOP candidates, but the Republican presidential frontrunner, Donald Trump, is skipping this event, and he's also alluded to the fact that he's going to be skipping some of those early debates. What's your reaction there?
You know, I mean, President Trump's going to do what President Trump does. I think it's a mistake that he's not here touching hands with Iowans, but that's his choice. And when it comes to the debates, I think it's a great opportunity for everybody to see exactly who they have to choose from and put our experience up there. I'll put my record up against anyone on that stage. And so, you know, look, I hope he's in it. But if he chooses not to be, we'll go on without him.
What do you think about the new RNC debate standards right now, and in terms of how many people you believe should be participating in this?
I think they've set their criteria at 1% in the polls and 40,000 donors. We've already had that. In the first 6 weeks, we had 70,000 donations from all 50 states. 67,000 of those donations were $200 or less. You know, to me, we're going to be on that stage. We're going to go and fight for the American people's support, and we'll see what happens. It really doesn't matter to me. There's never been a debate stage that I'm afraid of, and there's not one that I'm looking, you know, not wanting to do. We will be on every debate stage that we need to, and I think it's a great opportunity for the candidate staff to show what they're really made of.
President Biden has just signed the Fiscal Responsibility Act into law, a bipartisan bill that's going to avoid a catastrophic default. There's been a lot of discussions when it comes to cutting government spending about what needs to be done to continue to lower inflation. What can you tell Americans right now about the truth about Social Security and Medicare?
Well, I think first let's tell Americans the truth. We are almost $32 trillion in debt. We are having to borrow money just to make our interest payments. It would be easy to blame Biden for that, but our Republicans did that to us too. They passed that $2.2 trillion COVID stimulus bill that expanded welfare. We now have 90 million Americans on Medicaid, 42 million Americans on food stamps. Instead of Republicans making it right, they opened up earmarks for the first time in 10 years. I mean, 7.5 million on horse racing in Arizona, 30 million on an honors college in Vermont, 10 million on a courthouse in Colorado. They don't have any value or respect for a dollar. And so this is about calling out Republicans and Democrats. No more debt. I think the deal was bad. I think we should not be doing anything that doesn't take us back to pre-COVID levels. And that's why I will stop the spending. I'll stop the borrowing. We'll cut up the credit cards. We'll end the earmarks. And I'll veto any spending bill that doesn't take us back to pre-COVID levels. And yes, we do have to talk about entitlement reform, but we don't take away from those who've been promised. We don't take away from those that have put money in. We look at those like my kids in their 20s, and we go to them and we say, to you, we're going to raise the retirement age so it reflects life expectancy. We're going to limit benefits on the wealthy. We're going to expand Medicare Advantage plans. That's how we'll go, and we'll pay down debt. You know, I'll remind you, I'm not a lawyer, I'm an accountant. And it's time that we actually put an accountant in the White House so that we can start treating tax taxpayer dollars the way they deserve to be treated. They're spending it like it's funny money, and it's not. It's our money, and we deserve to know that we're not leaving a terrible debt and economy to our children. Our kids are never going to forgive us for this. That's why I'm going to make sure we go and we put an end to it.
One of the animating issues when the Fiscal Responsibility Act entered the Senate was when it came to defense spending. There were concerns about cuts to defense spending. There's been a lot of debate in Congress about there being enough funding for Ukraine going forward. They sought assurances from the Democratic Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer on that. Do you at any point think that America should close the checkbook when it comes to aid for Ukraine? And if so, what is it?
Well, first of all, America should close the checkbook when it comes to foreign aid, giving money to countries that hate America. $50 billion went last year to countries like Pakistan, to Zimbabwe, the most anti-American African country, Iraq, Belarus, who's holding hands with Russia, Communist Cuba, who we named a #1 state sponsor of terrorism. We gave money to China. It doesn't get more embarrassing than that. But what I'll tell you is when it comes to Ukraine, that's a war on freedom that we have to win. But we don't have to do it by giving Ukraine money. We don't have to do it by putting troops on the ground. What we have to do is make sure that we get with our allies and we make sure they have the equipment and the ammunition to win. That's what we need to be doing. But when it comes to Department of Defense spending, there were two things at the United Nations that I knew our enemies never wanted us to have. They never wanted us to be energy independent, and they never wanted us to have a strong military. We'll do both things because a strong military doesn't start wars. A strong military prevents wars. And we'll make sure we're not going hat in hand to Saudi Arabia for oil. We'll make sure we're not getting dirty oil from Venezuela. But when you have a strong military, understand, too, I know about the Department of Defense. I'm a military spouse. The Department of Defense wastes a lot of money. They have a lot of programs that we don't need. They're very bureaucratic. They're very bloated. They need to cut back on the spending, and we need to make sure the spending that's going into defense is going into making sure that we have the strongest, most powerful military in the world so that no one ever challenges us. And that's what I'll make sure we do.
And we know you have to go because you're going to be giving a big speech in just a moment. But quickly before you go, obviously part of the big news, as you mentioned, military and service to this country. Your husband's going to be deploying to Africa for a year with the National Guard. Just quickly, if you may, the question that a lot of Americans battle every day, which is how do you balance work and family throughout all of that?
Well, you know, I've always said if I'm a good wife and a good mom, I'll be a great president or a great governor or a great ambassador, and I've always done that. I'm so proud of Michael and his military brothers and sisters. This is what makes America great. You know, they answer the call of duty. They know this is about our freedoms. They know this is about our country, and they know that this is worth fighting for. And so I'm proud of him, and while there's never a good time for a deployment, I'll tell you that I support him 100%, the same way he supports me 100% to run for president. And so we're going to cheer each other on, and I will start the year-long prayer that happens when your spouse is deployed and hope for his and his unit's return home to all be safe.
All right, Nikki Haley, live from Des Moines, Iowa. We appreciate you taking time for us. Thank you.